I didn't expect the hardest part of moving out at 23 to be the way a 46-year-old divorced man would look at me across a kitchen table. My name's Richard. Yeah, I know, confusing, considering his name is Joseph. But that's how this story goes. Two grown men, one cramped apartment, and a lease that was supposed to solve my financial problems, not create entirely new ones. I answered Joseph said on a random Tuesday night when I was 2 glasses of cheap wine deep and spiraling about rent. Spare room available. Quiet apartment. Looking for responsible tenant. No drama. No drama. I actually laughed when I read that. The pictures showed a clean but lived-in place. Dark wood floors. Gray couch. Minimalist kitchen. The kind of apartment that screamed, "Recently divorced but pretending I'm thriving." Joseph replied within an hour. He asked basic questions: job, schedule, references. His messages were polite, direct, mature. Not the usual, "Hey bro, you chill?" roommate vibe. When I showed up to see the place, I almost turned around at the door. Not because it was bad. Because he opened it. Joseph was taller than I expected. Broad shoulders. Salt and pepper beard trimmed neatly. Simple black t-shirt, jeans, bare feet. He didn't look like someone desperately renting a room. He looked like someone who had his life together, or at least wanted me to believe he did. "You must be Richard," he said, voice low, steady. And I swear something about the way he said my name made my stomach flip. The apartment smelled faintly like coffee and clean laundry. No weird roommate odors. No chaos. Just quiet. "Sorry if it's too quiet," he added after a second. "It's been an adjustment." That's when I noticed the framed photo turned face down on the bookshelf. He caught me looking. "Divorce was finalized 6 months ago," he said matter-of-factly. "No kids. Just space to fill now." There was no self-pity in his tone. Just honesty. And I don't know what possessed me, but I said, "Yeah. I'm pretty good at filling space." The second the words left my mouth, I wanted to die. He blinked once, then the corner of his mouth twitched. "I'm sure you are." I moved in that weekend. The first week was normal. Too normal. Joseph kept to himself mostly. He worked from home 3 days a week, something in finance. I worked late shifts at a marketing firm downtown, so our schedules overlapped just enough to feel domestic without being suffocating. Mornings were the worst. He'd already be in the kitchen when I walked in half asleep, wearing nothing but sweatpants and a t-shirt. Hair messy. Barefoot. He'd look up from his coffee. And there would be this pause. Not inappropriate. Not obvious. Just charged. "Morning, Richard." "Morning." One morning I opened the fridge and realized he was standing closer than necessary. When I turned, my chest brushed his arm. He didn't move away immediately. Neither did I. "You can grab the almond milk," he said quietly. "It's behind the orange juice." I reached for it. My arm grazed his hand. The contact lasted maybe half a second too long. I felt it everywhere. He cleared his throat and stepped back. I told myself I was imagining things. He was divorced. Older. Probably straight. Probably just lonely. And I was projecting because I hadn't dated anyone serious in a year. But then came the gym incident. There's a small gym in the building basement. I usually go late to avoid people. One night I walked in and froze. Joseph was there. Sleeves rolled up. Sweat darkening his shirt. Headphones in. Focused. He noticed me in the mirror. Pulled one earbud out. "Didn't know you worked out down here. Usually don't run into anyone," I said. He gave me that half smile again. "Guess I ruined your routine." We ended up alternating sets on the bench without really planning to. Standing close. Passing weights. Breathing heavier than necessary. At one point he spotted me. His hands hovered at my ribs, then settled there when I struggled with the last rep. His grip was firm. Warm. "Push," he murmured. I did. But not because of the weight. When I stood up, we were close. Too close. His hands still on my sides. For a second, either of us moved. Then someone walked in. And it snapped. He stepped back immediately. Grabbed his water bottle. Good form, he said casually. Too casually. I went upstairs that night wired and restless. Because here's the thing, it wasn't just attraction. It was the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Like he was fighting something. 2 weeks in, I learned more about his divorce. We were sitting on the couch. Late. A bottle of whiskey between us. He doesn't usually drink much. That night he did. She said I changed, he said, staring at his glass. Said I was distant. That I wasn't present. Were you? He hesitated. I don't think I knew how to be. The vulnerability in his voice caught me off guard. Sometimes, he continued quietly, you wake up and realize you've been playing a role so long you don't know what's real anymore. The air shifted. My heart started pounding because I knew this wasn't just about marriage. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. You ever feel like that, Richard? Yeah, I said. My voice wasn't steady. Silence stretched between us. His knee brushed mine. Neither of us moved it away. And that's when I realized something terrifying. I didn't just rent a room from a divorced man older than me. I walked straight into something neither of us was ready to name. And I had no idea how much worse, or better, it was about to get. The first time Joseph touched me on purpose, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some movie moment where the music swells and the world fades out. It was quiet. Almost accidental. And that's what made it dangerous. It happened 3 nights after the whiskey conversation. I got home late, past midnight. The apartment was dark except for the kitchen light. I figured he'd gone to bed. He hadn't. He was sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open but untouched. Just staring at the screen. You're up, I said, dropping my keys into the bowl by the door. He looked up slowly, like I'd pulled him out of something heavy. Couldn't sleep. I nodded, grabbing a glass of water. I could feel his eyes on my back. You ever think, he started, voice low, that maybe you built your whole life around expectations that weren't even yours? My hand stilled on the faucet. That's specific. He exhaled softly. Almost a laugh. Yeah. It is. I turned around. Leaned against the counter. He looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone who'd been holding his breath for years. Joseph, I said carefully, what are you really asking? Silence. Then he stood up. Slowly. And walked toward me. My body went rigid, but I didn't move. He stopped close enough that I could feel the heat coming off him. I don't know who I am anymore, he admitted. And I think that scares me more than the divorce did. My pulse was pounding in my ears. You're figuring it out, I said. And what if I don't like what I find? His eyes dropped, just for a second, to my mouth. Then back up. I swallowed. That's not usually how this works. He searched my face like he was looking for permission to say something else. And then he did something small. His hand lifted. Hovered near my waist. Paused. I could see him fighting himself. Joseph, I whispered. Not a warning. More like acknowledgement. His fingers brushed the fabric of my shirt. Barely there. But deliberate. The contact shot straight through me. We both froze. You should tell me to stop, he murmured. But he didn't move his hand. I didn't push it away. Do you want to stop? I asked. That question hung between us like a loaded weapon. His jaw tightened. I don't know. That was the most honest thing he'd said all night. And maybe the most dangerous. Because neither of us stepped back. Instead, his fingers slid, slow, cautious, from my side to my hip. Testing. My breath hitched. He noticed. His eyes darkened. Richard, he said, and the way he said my name this time wasn't casual. It wasn't roommate friendly. It wasn't confused. It was hungry. That scared me. But it also made something in my chest unravel. Joseph, I said again, softer. He leaned in. Not kissing. Not yet. Just close enough that our foreheads almost touched. I spent 20 years being the husband I was supposed to be, he whispered. And I don't know if I ever asked myself what I actually wanted. His thumb pressed lightly into my hip bone. My hands were at my sides, fingers curling into fists because if I touched him first, I wasn't sure we'd survive it. And now? I breathed. His exhale was shaky. Now I can't stop thinking about you walking around this apartment like you don't know what you're doing to me. The confession hit like a punch. You think I don't know? I shot back before I could stop myself. That made him pause. Really pause. You do? I stepped closer. Closed the tiny space between us. If you didn't want this, I said quietly, you wouldn't be standing this close. His control cracked then. I saw it happen. His hand slid fully around my waist, pulling me flush against him. The contact was electric. Solid chest. Strong arms. Heat everywhere. We both inhaled sharply. This is a mistake, he said. But he didn't let go. Probably, I agreed. Neither of us moved. And then, his lips brushed mine. Not forceful. Not desperate. Tentative. Like he was asking a question. For half a second, I didn't respond. Because this was real. Because once I kissed him back, we weren't pretending anymore. But I did. I kissed him back. And it wasn't gentle after that. The hesitation dissolved. His hand tightened at my waist, the other coming up to cup the back of my neck. He kissed like a man who had been starving. Like he'd been denying himself something for decades. My hands finally moved, gripping his shirt, pulling him closer. He made a low sound in his throat that sent heat straight through me. Then suddenly, he pulled away, breathing hard, eyes wide. We can't, he said. But he didn't step back. Because you're straight? I asked. His expression shifted. That word. Straight. Like it didn't fit anymore. I don't know what I am, he admitted. The vulnerability in that cracked something in me. You don't have to label it tonight, I said. You just have to decide if you want it. His grip on me tightened. And that's when I felt it. His body reacting. No confusion there. He saw the realization on my face. A flash of embarrassment crossed his. Then defiance. God, he muttered under his breath. The tension between us shifted from emotional to undeniable. You're shaking, I whispered. So are you. He wasn't wrong. We stood there in the kitchen at 12:47 a.m., balanced on the edge of something that would change everything. And the worst part? Neither of us wanted to step away. But Joseph was still fighting himself. And I had a feeling that battle was far from over. The next morning, everything felt different. Not in some dramatic, life-changing way. There was no confrontation. No awkward conversation. No. We need to talk. It was worse than that. It was normal. Too normal. I woke up later than usual, the events from the night before replaying in my head like something I might have imagined. The kitchen light had been off when I went to bed. Joseph's door had been closed. Part of me wondered if he'd wake up and pretend it never happened. Part of me wondered if I should. I walked into the kitchen around 9. He was already there. Coffee made. Laptop open. Same black t-shirt. Same calm posture. For a second, he didn't look up. Then he did. Our eyes met. And there it was. Not panic. Not regret. Just awareness. Morning, he said. His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it. Tight control. Morning, I replied. I opened the fridge mostly to give my hands something to do. The silence stretched between us, thick but not uncomfortable. Just charged. Finally, he spoke. I didn't sleep much. I closed the fridge slowly. Me either. Another pause. Then he added quietly, I don't regret it. That hit harder than I expected. I turned to face him fully. Good, I said. Because neither do I. He watched my face carefully, like he was looking for hesitation. I need you to understand something, he said. Oh. That last night wasn't confusion, he continued. It wasn't the whiskey. And it wasn't loneliness. His jaw tightened slightly. I've been trying not to look at you like that for weeks. My stomach dropped. Weeks? I asked. His mouth twitched. You walk around here like you're comfortable in your skin. Like you don't care who's looking. He paused. And I was looking. That explained a lot. Then why stop last night? I asked. You pulled away. His expression shifted. Because there it was. The real problem. You're my tenant, he said simply. You're 23. I'm 46. And I don't want to be the guy who takes advantage of a situation. The fact that he was worried about that instead of himself made something warm settle in my chest. You didn't take advantage of anything, I said. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he stood up, walked around the table, stopped in front of me. Not touching, just close. Then tell me something honestly, he said quietly. If I hadn't stopped last night, would you have? I held his gaze. No. That answer did something to him. I saw it in the way his shoulders shifted, the way his breathing changed. But he still didn't touch me. Joseph, I said softer now. You don't have to keep fighting this like it's something wrong. His eyes dropped briefly to my mouth again. Then back up. I'm not fighting you, he said. Then what are you fighting? A long silence. Then the truth. My whole life. That hit. Because this wasn't just attraction for him. This was identity. Control. Fear. Years of being someone else. I'm not asking you to figure everything out, I said. I'm just asking you to be honest about what you want right now. He exhaled slowly. And that's when his control slipped again. His hand came up. This time, it didn't hover. It went straight to my waist. Firm. Certain. Right now, he said quietly. He stepped closer. Right now I want to stop pretending that when you're in this apartment, I'm not aware of you all the time. My breath caught. His thumb pressed lightly against my side, the contact slow and deliberate. I want to stop acting like I don't notice when you come home late, he continued. Or when you walk past my office. Or when you stand too close in the kitchen. He was close enough now that our chests were almost touching. And I want to stop pretending that last night didn't feel like the first honest thing I've done in years. That wasn't just attraction. That was confession. My hands came up, resting lightly on his sides. He went still for half a second. Then leaned into the contact. You're not confused, I said quietly. His eyes darkened. No, he agreed. And this time, when he kissed me, there was no hesitation. It was slower than the night before. Deeper. More certain. His hands tightened around my waist, pulling me fully against him. The difference now was the intention. Last night had been impulse. This felt like a decision. A dangerous one. Because halfway through the kiss, he broke it again. But this time he didn't step away. His forehead rested against mine. We need boundaries, he said, voice rough. I blinked. That's not what I expected you to say right now. A quiet huff of a laugh left him. I'm serious. His hands were still holding me. If this is happening, it can't be messy. No secrecy games. No confusion. And if either of us starts feeling like the living situation makes this complicated, we talk. That was the most Joseph thing he could have said. Even now, he was trying to be responsible. You're negotiating after kissing me in the kitchen, I said. He gave me a look. I'm 46, Richard. I don't do chaos anymore. I studied his face. The seriousness. The restraint. And underneath it all, the want he was still trying to keep contained. Okay, I said. His grip tightened slightly. Okay? He repeated. Okay, I confirmed. A long pause. Then he asked the question that really mattered. One more thing. What? If this gets harder, if I start wanting more than I should. His voice dropped. Are you going to run? I didn't answer right away. Because I already knew something he didn't. This wasn't going to stay simple. And neither of us was ready for how complicated it was about to become. Things didn't explode after that. No dramatic escalation. No sudden nights tangled together. No reckless decisions. If anything, Joseph became more controlled. Which, somehow, made everything worse. Because now the tension wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. We didn't talk about what we were. But we started orbiting each other differently. Mornings turned into quiet routines. Coffee made for two instead of one. Him sliding a mug toward me without asking. Evenings shifted too. If I came home late, the living room light would still be on. You ate? He'd ask. Yeah. Good. Simple conversations. Normal. Domestic. But the physical awareness never left. Sometimes it was small, his hand brushing the middle of my back as he walked past. Sometimes it was deliberate, like the night I was standing at the sink, sleeves rolled up, and he came up behind me to grab a glass. There was plenty of space. He didn't use it. His chest brushed my shoulder. His arm reached past mine slowly. Sorry, he said. He wasn't sorry. I didn't move either. That was becoming our pattern. Control. Pressure. No release. The first real crack came 2 weeks later. It was a Friday night. I'd had a long week, and Joseph had been buried in work. We'd barely seen each other for 3 days. Which was strange, because I realized I was starting to notice when he wasn't around. I walked into the apartment expecting it to be quiet. Instead, I heard music. Low. Old-school rock. Coming from the kitchen. Joseph was there, sleeves rolled up, cooking. Actual cooking. Not his usual. Heat something and call it dinner. He glanced up when I walked in. You're home early. Yeah. You're cooking? He shrugged like it was nothing. Thought I'd make something real for once. I leaned against the counter, watching him move around the kitchen. Comfortable. Focused. Relaxed in a way I hadn't seen much lately. You didn't have to do that, I said. I didn't do it for you, he replied automatically. Then he paused. Looked at me. But I made enough for two. Something warm settled in my chest. We ate at the table instead of the couch. Conversation came easier that night. Work, random stories, small things. Normal things. But every now and then, I'd catch him looking at me. Not casually. Carefully. Like he was studying something he still didn't fully trust himself with. After dinner, I stood up to clear the plates. He reached for them at the same time. Our hands touched. Neither of us pulled away. For a second, we just stood there. Close. Too close for something as simple as dishes. You've been avoiding me, I said quietly. His jaw tightened slightly. I've been giving us space. That's not the same thing. His eyes lifted to mine. I don't want this to turn into something impulsive, he said. Or physical just because it's easy. That stung more than I expected. You think this is easy? I asked. That's exactly what worries me, he replied. The honesty hit harder than anything else. Because he wasn't pushing me away. He was scared of how much he wanted it. I set the plates down slowly. Joseph. He didn't move. You keep acting like this is some kind of mistake waiting to happen. He held my gaze. Isn't it? I stepped closer. If it was a mistake, you wouldn't still be looking at me like that. Silence. His breathing changed. I closed the distance. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough that our chests were inches apart. You're not avoiding this, I said quietly. You're stretching it. His voice came out rough. Because if I stop controlling it. His hand moved. Slow. Careful. It settled at my waist again, the same place as before, like his body already knew where it belonged. I'm not sure I'll stop. That wasn't a warning. That was a confession. My hands came up, resting against his chest. Solid. Warm. Steady heartbeat under my palms. You don't have to stop, I said. That was it. That was the moment his restraint broke. He pulled me in fully this time. The kiss wasn't tentative anymore. It was controlled intensity, like everything he'd been holding back for weeks had finally been given permission. His grip tightened at my waist, pulling me flush against him. But even now, there was something different about Joseph. He wasn't rushing. His hands stayed where they were. Firm. Grounding. Like he was making sure this didn't turn into something careless. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. Both of us breathing heavier than we should have been. This changes things, he said quietly. I swallowed. I know. His thumb moved slightly against my side. And then he asked the question I hadn't been expecting. Are you seeing anyone? The question hung there. No, I said. A long pause. Then, quieter. Are you planning to? I studied his face. The control. The caution. And underneath it, something that looked a lot like fear. No, I said again. That answer mattered to him. I could see it. Because his shoulders finally relaxed. Just a little. But the truth was, neither of us had asked the bigger question yet. And the reason this was about to get complicated wasn't the age difference. Or the living situation. It was the fact that Joseph wasn't just starting to want me. He was starting to rely on me. And I had a feeling that line was going to blur faster than either of us expected. It didn't hit me all at once. The way Joseph was starting to rely on me. It happened in small things. The kind you don't notice until they start stacking up. He started coming out of his office more during the day. At first, it was just quick breaks. You making coffee? Yeah. Make one for me? Then it turned into him sitting at the kitchen table while I worked on my laptop, even when he had his own space. Sometimes we didn't talk for an hour. Just existed in the same room. One afternoon, I looked up and caught him watching me. Not in the hungry way he used to. This was softer. Quieter. Like he was memorizing something. What? I asked. He shook his head. Nothing. But he didn't look away immediately. And something about that look sat heavy in my chest. The physical side of things stayed controlled. We kissed. Sometimes in the kitchen. Sometimes in the hallway when one of us was passing by. Always slow. Intentional. Never rushed. Joseph still had rules for himself. Hands at my waist. My back. My neck. Never wandering. Never pushing things further. At first, I thought it was restraint. Then I realized something else. He wasn't afraid of crossing a line physically. He was afraid of losing control emotionally. The shift happened on a Sunday night. It had been raining all day, one of those quiet, gray afternoons where the whole apartment feels smaller. I was on the couch watching something half absent-mindedly when Joseph came out of his bedroom. He didn't go to the kitchen. Didn't go to his office. He just stood there for a second. Then sat down next to me. Close. Closer than usual. Our shoulders touched. You okay? I asked. He nodded. But he didn't move away. We sat like that for a while. TV playing. Rain hitting the windows. Then, after a few minutes, he spoke. I talked to my ex today. That got my attention. How'd that go? A long pause. She's moving in with someone. I didn't know what to say to that. So that's final, he added quietly. There was no anger in his voice. No jealousy. Just something that sounded like the last thread had finally snapped. I'm sorry, I said. He shook his head slightly. I'm not. Not really. Another pause. I just didn't expect it to feel this empty. That word stayed in the air. Empty. I turned slightly toward him. You're not alone, Joseph. The second I said it, I felt his body shift. Not dramatically. Just a subtle lean toward me. His hand found my thigh. It was completely innocent. Just resting there. Warm. Heavy. Needing contact. That was new. We stayed like that for a while. Then his fingers tightened slightly. Can I ask you something? He said. Yeah. If we keep going like this. His voice dropped. Are you going to leave when it gets complicated? There it was again. That fear. Not about attraction. Not about identity. About losing something he was already starting to count on. I'm not planning to go anywhere, I said carefully. That's not the same thing, he replied. His hand tightened again. I need to know you're not just passing through my life. That hit harder than anything physical we'd done. Because suddenly this wasn't about chemistry. This was about attachment. Joseph, I said quietly, we've known each other for a month. I know. But you're asking questions like this is something bigger already. He finally turned to look at me fully. And there it was. No confusion. No hesitation. Just honesty. It is bigger, he said. The room went quiet except for the rain. You're the first person I've felt like myself around in a long time, he continued. Not the husband. Not the provider. Not the version of me everyone expects. His thumb moved slowly against my leg, like he didn't even realize he was doing it. With you, I don't feel like I'm performing. That kind of vulnerability does something to you. Because now the weight of this wasn't just emotional for him. It was identity level. And I realized something in that moment that made my stomach tighten. He wasn't just falling into something new. He was rebuilding his sense of self around me. Which meant if this went wrong, it wouldn't just be a breakup. It would be a collapse. I shifted closer, our legs fully pressed together now. I'm here, I said quietly. That was the truth. But I didn't promise anything bigger. Because even then, I could feel this moving faster than it should. His forehead rested lightly against my shoulder. Not a kiss. Not even romantic. Just leaning. And that was the moment it changed. Because Joseph wasn't holding back anymore. Not physically. Not emotionally. And the line between roommate, attraction, and something real was about to disappear completely. The first night Joseph fell asleep next to me, it wasn't planned. There was no big moment. No conversation about staying over. No decision. It just happened. And somehow, that made it feel more serious than anything else we'd done. It was a Tuesday. Work had been brutal for both of us. I got home late, mentally drained, and found him in the living room with his laptop open but untouched. You working? I asked. He shook his head. Trying to. I dropped my bag and sat down beside him. Close. Like we had been lately. Neither of us spoke for a while. The TV played something neither of us was watching. His knee rested against mine. At some point, his hand found my leg again, not asking, not testing anymore. Just there. Comfort. That was becoming the dangerous part. Come here, he said quietly after a while. I didn't even ask what he meant. I shifted closer, and his arm wrapped around my shoulders. We stayed like that for a long time. No kissing. No tension. Just breathing. At some point, his head leaned back against the couch. Then slowly, it tilted toward mine. When I glanced over, his eyes were closed. Joseph? I said softly. No response. He'd fallen asleep. And instead of moving, instead of waking him, instead of going to my room, I stayed. I don't remember when I fell asleep. I just remember waking up later, the room dark except for the TV glow. Joseph was still next to me. Only now he was closer. One arm wrapped around my waist. His face pressed lightly against my shoulder. Not intentional. Instinctive. Like his body had settled into mine while he slept. For a few seconds, I just lay there, completely still. Because this felt different. Not physical. Not charged. Safe. And that word hit harder than anything else. Safe. I turned my head slightly. His breathing was slow. Steady. Completely relaxed. This was a man who had spent weeks controlling himself. And now, asleep, he was holding on to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. That's when I realized something. Joseph didn't just want me. He trusted me. And trust is heavier than attraction. We must have stayed like that for hours. Because the next thing I knew, there was movement. He stirred. His arm tightened slightly around my waist before he fully woke up. Then he froze. I felt it immediately. The moment he realized where he was. Sorry, he said quickly, starting to pull back. I grabbed his arm before he could move away. Don't. He paused. You fell asleep, I added. It's not a crime. His eyes searched my face carefully. You didn't move. No. A long silence. Then he settled back again, slower this time, like he was making a conscious decision. His arms stayed around me. But now he was awake. And aware. That felt easy, he admitted quietly. Yeah, I said. Too easy. That's what neither of us said out loud. After that night, something shifted again. The physical tension didn't disappear. But it changed. The kisses were still there, sometimes slow in the kitchen, sometimes quick in the hallway. But now there were other things. Him sitting closer than necessary. His hand resting on my leg while we watched TV. Falling asleep on the couch together more than once. It wasn't just attraction anymore. It was routine. And routines are dangerous when you don't know what you're building. The real moment it hit me came a few days later. I came home earlier than usual. The apartment was quiet. Joseph was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, phone in his hand. He looked tense. Everything okay? I asked. He nodded too quickly. Yeah. Then he put the phone down. I was talking to my sister. Something in his tone made me pause. And? A long breath. I told her about you. My stomach dropped. You what? He held my gaze. I didn't give details. I just said there's someone here who's been important to me lately. The word someone hung in the air. Important, I repeated. His jaw tightened slightly. I didn't plan to say it like that. It just came out. That should have felt good. Instead, something uneasy settled in my chest. Because this wasn't casual anymore. This wasn't just two people figuring something out. This was him starting to place me into his life. Into his story. And once that happens, it's not easy to step back. That night, he held me a little tighter on the couch. His hand resting against my side. Thumb moving slowly, absent-mindedly. Comfortably. Like he'd already decided I belonged there. And that's when I started to worry. Because Joseph wasn't just opening up. He was attaching. And I wasn't sure either of us was ready for how hard that was going to hit when reality caught up with us. The first real problem didn't come from Joseph. It came from me. And the worst part? I didn't even realize I was pulling away until he noticed. It started with small things. Staying later at work. Putting my headphones in when I got home instead of sitting with him. Going to my room instead of the couch. None of it was intentional. At least, that's what I told myself. But the truth was simple. Things were getting too comfortable. Too routine. Too serious. Because somewhere between the kitchen kisses and falling asleep together on the couch, Joseph had stopped feeling like a situation. He started feeling like stability. And at 23, stability from a 46-year-old man you rented a room from? That's the kind of thing that sneaks up on you and suddenly feels heavy. He didn't say anything at first. Joseph wasn't the confrontational type. But I could see it. The way his eyes followed me when I came home and went straight to my room. The way he'd sit on the couch a little longer, like he was waiting to see if I'd join him. The way he'd ask, casually, "Long day?" "Yeah." "Everything okay?" "Yeah." And then silence. The conversation finally happened on a Thursday night. I came home late again. Almost 10. The living room light was on. Joseph was sitting on the couch, TV playing, but he wasn't watching it. He looked up when I walked in. "You've been busy," he said. It wasn't an accusation. But it wasn't casual either. "Work's been crazy," I replied, dropping my bag. He nodded. Then, after a pause, "Richard." That tone. The serious one. I stopped walking. "Yeah?" He didn't move from the couch. "Did something change?" There it was. Simple. Direct. No drama. And somehow that made it harder. "No," I said too quickly. His eyes stayed on mine. "You're not really here anymore," he said quietly. That hit. "I'm here," I replied. "You're in the apartment," he corrected. "That's not the same thing." Silence stretched between us. He wasn't angry. That would have been easier. He just looked careful, like he was afraid of what the answer might be. I walked over slowly and sat down at the other end of the couch. "Joseph, Are you pulling away?" he asked. No accusation. Just honesty. And the worst part? I hesitated. That was all the answer he needed. His shoulders tightened slightly, but he kept his voice steady. "Okay," he said. Just that. "Okay." That was worse than anything else. "Hey," I said quickly, shifting closer. "It's not like that." "Then tell me what it's like." I rubbed the back of my neck. Because here was the truth I hadn't said out loud yet. This got serious really fast. He didn't interrupt. Didn't argue. Just listened. "You told your sister about me," I continued. "We fall asleep together on the couch. We eat dinner like a couple half the time. And I didn't even realize when it stopped being casual." His jaw tightened slightly. "Is that a problem?" I met his eyes. "I'm 23, Joseph." There it was. The thing we'd both been ignoring. "I'm still figuring out my life," I said. "My career, where I'm going, who I'm going to be. And you." I hesitated. "You already built a life." Something shifted in his expression then. Not anger. Not hurt. Understanding. But that didn't make it easier. "So you think I'm too much?" he said quietly. "No," I said immediately. "Then what?" I took a breath. "I think you're already ready for something real." Silence. "And I don't know if I am yet." That was the honest answer. And it hung between us like something fragile. For a long moment, Joseph didn't say anything. Then he nodded slowly. "That's fair." Fair. God, he was handling this like an adult. That somehow made me feel worse. "I don't want to lose this," I added quickly. He looked at me. "You won't," he said. But there was something different in his voice now. More guarded. More careful. Like he was already adjusting his expectations. We sat there in silence for a while. Then, after a few minutes, he asked quietly, "Can I ask you one thing honestly?" "Yeah." "If you met someone your age tomorrow, would you choose them over this?" That question hit harder than anything else he'd asked. Because he wasn't asking out of insecurity. He was asking out of realism. And I didn't answer right away. That pause said everything. He nodded once. Not angry. Not dramatic. Just accepting the truth before I even said it. "That's what I needed to know," he said. And for the first time since I'd moved in, I saw him pull back. Not physically. Emotionally. And something in my chest tightened. Because I suddenly realized something I hadn't expected. I wasn't the only one who could step away. Joseph could too. And if he did, this apartment was going to feel very empty. The distance didn't happen overnight. Joseph didn't suddenly become cold. He didn't stop sitting next to me. Didn't stop asking if I'd eaten. Didn't slam doors or act wounded. That would have been easier. Instead, he adjusted. And that hurt more. The next few days felt balanced. Too balanced. He gave me space without being asked. If I stayed in my room, he didn't come looking. If I worked late, the light wasn't always left on anymore. We still talked. Still ate dinner together sometimes. But he stopped reaching for me first. No hand resting on my thigh during movies. No automatic arm around my shoulders. And that absence was loud. I told myself this was good. Healthy. Mature. So why did the apartment suddenly feel colder? The real turning point came the following Saturday. I was getting ready to go out. Not a date, just drinks with coworkers. But as I walked into the living room in a clean shirt and actual effort put into my hair, Joseph looked up. There was something unreadable in his expression. "You going out?" he asked. "Yeah. Just for a few." He nodded. "Have fun." Simple. Calm. I hesitated. "You okay?" He gave me that small, controlled smile. "I'm fine." But when I grabbed my keys, something in me tightened. Because for the first time, he didn't look like he was waiting for me to come back. He looked like he was preparing himself not to. I didn't stay out long. The bar was loud. People my age. Easy conversations. A girl flirted with me. A guy did too. And all I could think about was Joseph sitting on that couch pretending he didn't care. I left before midnight. When I opened the apartment door, the living room light was off. Kitchen dark. His bedroom door closed. Something about that hit wrong. I stood there for a second, keys still in my hand. Then I did something impulsive. I knocked on his door. Silence. Then, "Yeah? Can I come in?" A pause. Then the door opened. Joseph was in a t-shirt and sweatpants. Reading glasses on. Book in hand. Domestic. Calm. Separate. "What's up?" he asked. I stepped inside before I could overthink it. "You're really okay with this?" I asked. "With what?" "With me not knowing what I want." He studied my face carefully. "I told you," he said quietly. "I'm not here to pressure you into something you're not ready for." "That's not what I'm asking." "Then what are you asking?" I exhaled. "I'm asking if you're okay pretending you don't feel anything." That landed. Because he wasn't pretending well. His jaw tightened slightly. "I'm not pretending," he said. "Then why does it feel like you disappeared?" Silence. Then he set the book down. Took off his glasses. "You asked for space," he said. "I asked for time." "That's the same thing to someone who already knows what he wants." There it was. No anger. Just truth. "And what do you want?" I asked. He didn't hesitate this time. "You." The word was steady. Certain. "I want you," he continued. "Not casually. Not halfway. Not until you find someone easier." His eyes locked onto mine. "But I'm not going to beg you to choose me." That hit hard. Because for the first time, I realized something clearly. Joseph wasn't desperate. He wasn't clinging. He was offering something solid. And waiting to see if I had the courage to take it. I stepped closer. Not rushed. Not panicked. Just honest. "I got scared," I admitted. He didn't react. "I've never had something feel this steady before. And it freaked me out." Still quiet. "But when I was out tonight, I kept thinking about coming back here." His expression softened slightly. "Why?" "Because you're not chaos," I said. "You're not games. You're not uncertainty." I swallowed. "You're home." That was the first time I saw him lose composure. Just slightly. His breathing changed. "You realize what you're saying?" he said quietly. "Yeah." I stepped closer again. "This isn't me promising forever," I added. "But it's me choosing this." "Choosing you?" "Not because it's safe. Not because it's easy. I met his eyes fully. But because I want it. Silence. Then his hand came up. Slow. Deliberate. It cupped my jaw. Say it again, he said softly. I want you. That was enough. He kissed me. Not controlled this time. Not restrained. It wasn't desperate either. It was certain. And when he pulled me closer, there was no hesitation left in him. Not about identity. Not about age. Not about what this could become. Just two men choosing each other. Fully. We didn't rush into anything dramatic after that. No grand declarations. No labels forced too fast. But the shift was clear. He reached for me again. In the kitchen. On the couch. In bed. Not out of fear. Not out of need. But because we both decided to stop holding back. 6 months later, I still live in that apartment. But it doesn't feel like a rented room anymore. It feels shared. Joseph laughs more now. Sleeps better. Doesn't flinch when someone asks if he's seeing someone. And me? I stopped looking at stability like it was a trap. Because sometimes, what feels heavy at first is just something real. And I almost walked away from it. I'm glad I didn't. Because the divorced man I rented a room from turned out to be the most honest thing I've ever chosen. And this time, neither of us is pretending anymore.